It's gone. Everything's gone. I feel like if I died, I don't think people would be this sad.
First off, thank you for being here. In your own words, who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Dave Egan. I'm the CEO of Drift Games. At the point in COVID, the Irish government was backing all of the loans for businesses. We were going bankrupt anyway. So I was like, well, what if we just took 100 G's and built 2 drift cars on our YouTube channel? The unique part of our business is that we do what we want to do and then we make it work.
An unbelievably savage fire has basically put you guys back to step one.
From the side of the building is one of the biggest tire yards in Dublin. Fire brigade at one point had to make a decision to let our place burn in order to stop the fire spreading. This is something we learned afterwards, but I think there were...
Dave, first off, thank you for being here. It must be an incredibly challenging time. I think if you're in the car scene and haven't seen what's been going on with your brand, then you're definitely living under a rock. Even on the way here, me and Steve sat in the corner over there, had to go past and kind of take in the scale of what you guys are dealing with at the minute after an unbelievably savage fire has basically put you guys back to step one in some respects. But there's a lot more that's gone into Drift Games and your story and the story of them building an absolutely enormous, amazing, wonderful business over the last 10 years that needs to be told. But in your own words, for people that think they know you, but maybe don't as well as they think, in your own words, who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Dave Egan. I am the CEO of Drift Games, and there's another couple of companies thrown in there as well that do different things. I've been 10 years professionally working in drifting, more or less. We've branched out into different things along the way, but drifting is our core. That's what I fell in love with. That's what I sort of found my passion in. And we built a business over the last 10 years that it started simple. I bought out the Irish Drift Championship because I didn't want to get a real job after, so many kind of failed college courses and different things. I said, I was so into cars. I was actually working as a DJ at the time. It was actually, the whole story of the 10 years is almost like an accident happening, a happy accident from start to finish. So I was DJing in a club that was very close to where a lot of people used to hang out who drifted. And my DJ said, so I was quite vocal. I never really had a problem talking publicly. And then they said, hey, do you want to come down and do this commentary gig for this drift event? Went there, knew absolutely nothing. Went online the night before, watched some US drifting, got some terminology. Literally just walked. I was big into cars for a long time and JDM and Japanese cars, but I never really had the technicality of drifting down. They just said, look, literally there's a Pro-Am competition the day before. Nobody commentates. So you're going to be better than that. So I said, okay, I'm not up against anybody. It's just a random day. And I honestly remember saying, this would be a cool thing to do, just to say I did it and go back to being a DJ. And I said, okay, I learned the terminology, did a day of commentary. They said, oh, you're really good. You should do the pro day. Did the pro day. And that was 2010. And ever since then, that's all I've done. So I didn't even have this major master plan like a lot of people have to get into an industry or do any of those things. I was hugely passionate about cars. I was okay at public speaking, I guess. And then that was just a niche for me. And then the guy who owned the championship in Ireland, I was moving to Dubai. I pitched my idea for taking over the championship. Never ran a business, never had my own limited company, absolutely nothing. And I had about 20,000 euro, which I borrowed from my dad reluctantly to help me start up, to buy a van and some cones. They kind of said, we'll give this guy a chance. They gave me the championship. And then over those 10 years, that expanded from Ireland to the UK. We ran the UK for 3 years. Then we went to the Middle East. We did that for almost 10 years. Then we went to Europe and we did Europe. And then eventually we partnered with Adam LZ, who's quite a well-known YouTuber, to run a world tour. So that was an idea of mine that I brought him into. And then we went all over the world with it. Then, and it's hard to explain, we sort of had a brilliant business. So we were an events company, more or less. We used to do 16, 18, 20 drift events a year. This was our business. The employees grew. We had media teams. We had marketing, digital marketing, organizers, operations. All that stuff was going great. And then COVID comes along and 90% of the business just disappeared overnight because there was no events for a year and a half or so. So we tried to struggle through that. That was quite a challenging time. Sort of set us back to square one again. And then because we couldn't go anywhere, we did have a couple of cars that we were obviously, just for a hobby. This wasn't like something we put publicly out there. And we were like, well, what if we just film ourselves messing around with these cars because we've nothing else to do? And we did that. Some people liked it. And then we got to a point, which was a really strange thing, that at the point in COVID, the Irish government was backing all of the loans for businesses because they didn't want everything to collapse, So we were like, so you mean we can walk in and just get a loan for anything? And we were going bankrupt anyway. So I was like, well, what if we just like took 100 G's and built 2 drift cars on our YouTube channel? Worst comes to worst, we'll go bankrupt doing something we love. Best case scenario, we'll be able to recoup some sponsorship based on that. And that is literally what we did. We took €100,000. We actually had 2 drift cars as a bank loan, which I don't think anyone's ever done before, but they couldn't refuse it because the bank were backed 100% by the government on all these loans. So we were like, let's take advantage. We built a Corvette and an MX-5, and those videos kind of took off for us. And we ended up actually getting all of the investment back on sponsorship, because at the time sponsors couldn't invest in events because there was no events. So we were kind of in a niche area. So those 2 cars pretty much saved the company. And from there, we built the YouTube channel out. It grew in sort of stature, and we didn't really know what we were doing. We're just making car videos, having fun. And then of course, all the events came back. So now we had this new business, which was the YouTube and merchandise side and the lifestyle side. And then we merged it with our old existing events companies. And then that all kind of came together for the last 4 years, which meant that we could accelerate quite heavily in terms of what we were doing. So we built a lot of stupid cars. We built our HQ, which was essentially a street in a warehouse, which is very... I remember talking to the builders and stuff there. Like, so luckily, the people that built that were all friends of friends, so they understood the vision. But I'm pretty sure any normal tradesman would have gone, you want to build a fake town on the second floor of a warehouse.
Sounds like something from Harry Potter Museum.
Yeah, and it came from Harry Potter, because I went to Universal Studios and I saw the Harry Potter. This is how all my ideas go. It's just things I see. I was like, this is not a real town. This is a fake street. Wouldn't it be cool if you built this inside? And obviously Ireland, it rains, every day. So we were like, well, what if we built a town inside that never rained? So we built that. That was our office, our showroom. We built a lot of projects there. It was really easy to showcase sponsorships and stuff because we had different themed buildings essentially in there. And so basically that's what we did for 10 years of the business. And none of it, I would say, completely a master plan. Obviously we have business meetings and we obviously I have some sort of vision on it, but it pivots very fast sometimes. And then also the unique part of our business is that we do what we want to do and then we make it work, rather than looking at what works and then doing that.
Oh, that's fascinating. Have you ever bought a crash damaged car?
I have actually bought a crash damaged car before.
Did you realise it was crash damaged before you bought it?
Definitely not.
You probably needed Car Vertical. Car Vertical gives you the chance to check out a car that you're looking to buy to make sure that it isn't damaged. All you have to do is head over to their website, www.carvertical.com, and enter the registration of the vehicle that you're looking at. Their software will then check thousands of databases, finding any potential hidden issues. Even supercars that look amazing once rebuilt sometimes have hidden stories. This Lamborghini Gallardo, which I did a report on Car Vertical, checks out perfectly with the mileage, but when we get to the photographs, we can see that it's had one hell of a life. If we scroll down, we can also see that there is an amber warning next to the financial and legal status on the car, and the vehicle is marked as scrap. Clearly, if you saw this on a report, you'd be steering clear of that car and avoiding any potential costly issues that you're going to be incurring. If you'd like to check a car before you buy it, just head over to Car Vertical and enter the discount code SUCCESS. That's SUCCESS for a 20% discount off your next check. Cheers, Car Vertical. I'm gonna go on that now rather than go to the start. Matt Armstrong, and when I listen to those guys talk about how they run their YouTube channel, they're very analytically based. They'll look at the analytics sometimes and build a video around it, or the type of builds. They're very looking at that, but you guys are genuinely just doing it out of a labour of love and passion.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would talk about, and I mean, I'm in business, I own a business, but success to me is always the hard word. To people say, are you successful at business? Are you a successful businessman? I come up with ideas, and I have a bunch of my best friends who work with me every day. We travel the world, adventure, everything. And then if I have a stupid idea, they're so, I would say, loyal that they just take that stupid idea and make that a possibility, and we make it a possibility. So it was never really a business that made any financial sense. We all make a wage or whatever, but it was always about, wouldn't it be cool? That's how everything starts. Wouldn't it be cool if we did this? How do we make that work? How do we convince other people to buy into this? And that's very much what the success story was, is that we did things that, especially in Ireland, we were the only people that would think this far out of the box. I mean, in the US and the UK, there would be a lot of, competition in that sense. But here, this was like, oh, well, just why don't we do an event with Adam LZ and we bring all these YouTubers and we'll have like a almost celebrity boxing, but in drifting event. And that broke attendance records. But again, I never really knew if it would or it wouldn't. It just, we did it, we made it work. So a lot of the success, I would say, what I consider success is that I love what I do. And that to me is almost more important than the monetary value of having a ton of cars or whatever. A lot of the cars I had that are now gone were really stupid cars to build and obviously way overpriced. And like, I was never really thinking about selling them at the end of it or having some sort of investment in them. It was just like, I really would like that car with this engine and that wheel. And then they were like, okay, we'll just figure that out and we'll find a way of doing it. So a lot of it was very, it's more like feeding your imagination. It's almost like a bunch of 15-year-olds running a company with some sort of sensibility like behind it, going, well, we kind of need to do budgets and we kind of need to market things properly.
But what I want to understand, there's going to be a number of kids that have that spark, that moment that sets them on a path when they're younger. You started by telling us about when you were in your teenage years. You were DJ, then got an opportunity to commentate on a drift.
Yep.
That is like a pinnacle moment where something has happened that's then led you on the course that you're on now. But if I look further back from that, just paint us a picture of you growing up. Like, why did you love cars? What was the moment before that set you on the path to there?
It's a very random one. And I think it's probably a pure passion because there was no influence of cars in my growing up. I have no family member that was into cars. My dad drove like company cars that were just, very like 4-door saloons, just bland Peugeot 406s and Volvo S40s, and just cars were cars. They just got you around the place and they looked okay. But I was always fascinated by cars since I was a kid, and I would have all the Hot Wheels, and that was all I ever wanted was cars. I would read. I think a lot of people would say, oh, you have a pretty good command of the English language when I was very young in school. And it came from reading Top Gear magazine. So I would read the magazine that were probably for an older generation than me, but I would read the articles on every car. I knew every model, everything about it. It was just an obsession for me when I was growing up. And then when I went to, that was... my dad would bring me to some races every now and again, but he wouldn't have a massive passion for it. Even though my dad now works for me and knows everything about drifting, back then he would know nothing about like performance cars, modified cars, whatever. But it was just a passion of mine. And then I think when I went to college, when I finished school, it was obviously, you're going to college, you can't afford a whole lot of anything.
And what were you doing at college?
I did a lot of stuff at college. So basically I was running around trying to find what I wanted to do. So the college for me, which is a strange one, is actually where I learned how to be an entrepreneur, by not going to college. So when I went to college, when I was 16 or 17, I started DJing, and that was something that I had a passion for as well, which was music. And music, obviously being a lot cheaper than cars, was something that I could do, in my bedroom, practice. And I used to mix a lot of house, hip hop, that kind of stuff. And then I got a couple of chances to gig. So I was gigging in a city in Ireland and I think I was 17 maybe, but I wasn't even legally allowed to be in the club, but I was DJing in the club for a long time.
Is that one of those situations where like you can pretty much get anywhere with a high vis? If you like turn up 100%. To the club, if you turn up to the club with the decks,
I have friends,
they're just never questioning it.
I have friends to this day that would come and carry half a CD case because they could get into the club and say they were helping out with the setup, and then just go on the beer for the night. And that was our thing. So we would go, like, I remember my dad would bring me to like gigs, like, and you would go in there, it's like this big heavy gig, and it's all cool people, and you're like, you're waiting for your dad at the end of it to come and bring you home.
So that tells me that your dad was someone that, even though necessarily didn't have the passion for cars that you had back then, he was someone that was happy for you to kind of do everything and have life experiences and chuck you in the deep end.
There was two parts of him that was like, one, he obviously wanted me to get a formal education because that was quite important to him. He'd come through that. And my dad is a massive inspiration to me. He was actually the first person in Ireland to receive a scholarship to Trinity College in the history of the country, would you believe? And he was very clever, very talented, and very hardworking, still is. And he basically said, you got to get this formal education. I like that you've got these hobbies and you're into those things, but you got to keep, so I think he would almost humor the hobbies so that I would have the trade-off of going to college. And then when I went to college, I first went to college to study, I think it was English, history and something I can't remember. So I went into like, it was a really good college, or we went to university in Ireland. It's a little different than the UK or the US. It's like university would be kind of top level, college middle level, and then there would be diplomas under that. So this was like a really good college, but I enjoyed college in the social aspect of it. But what I realized very quickly was I was a DJ, and I ended up like being at a place where everybody has parties all the time. So I decided to set up my own DJ company when I was in college, and very quickly I was making more money than I think I would have made even if I had the degree, because everybody's turning 18, everybody's turning 21. Every weekend there's a 21st or an 18th. And then during the week I was doing all the club nights. So I think at one point I was DJing 5 nights a week, and when you come home at 2, 3 in the morning, it's hard to get up and do your lectures and stuff like that too. So I was kind of more interested in the environment than I was in the studies, I guess.
Can you put an age on that, like a timestamp? What year would that have been?
Oh, I can't remember the year. I'm very bad with years. I was 20, maybe 19, 20 at the time. But it was a long time ago now. But it was basically learned that like I was probably like, oh, I'm making this money. And when I made the money from DJing, it allowed me to start buying cars. So then I was able to start buying Japanese import cars.
What that also tells me a little bit is a lot of people, when they're doing their first business or their first thing, even if it's DJing or they've just got into YouTube and they're figuring out how to charge a sponsor, there's some people that'll be doing like 100,000 views and charge a sponsor 50 quid because they just don't know. They just don't know different. From the outset, did you think, right, I've got to make this work financially profitably? Did you have to talk to those guys at the parties and think, I'm going to actually charge you good money, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was more, I think, I was friendly, I was outgoing, and I enjoyed a good time. So like I was like saying, if I'm not enjoying it, then no one else will enjoy it. You know what I mean? So I think I've taken that approach even through all the events that we've done. I've been like, if I think this is cool, and I'm pretty numb to it, because if you're at a party 5 nights a week, the 5th one, if it's good, it's very good, because you've been through 4 nights already. So you're going, these guys are obviously just on their only night out this week, but I'm like, this is a good night. So the same with events, I was always like, man, like if I'm enjoying this and I'm so oversaturated in what on this, it must be really good. So I was always like, what makes it interesting to me? What makes it different to me? How do I make it like theme a party, theme an event, whatever? So that taught me, I guess, event management would indirectly, and also networking, a lot of networking. So I always found college was a strange place, but I was always like, I'm all about inclusivity. So if people are, there's always social tiers where it's like, these are the popular guys, these are the non-popular guys, these are whatever. But I was always like trying to bring everybody in together to mix, to meet. And especially in college when people are from everywhere and different places, all they want to do is mingle and meet. So give them a platform and it works really well. So then they would have a great night. They would then book me to do their own parties in their own towns. So then I would get, I was like, oh, I need a car to go and do this. So I think I got a Fiat Punto to start with, a Fiat Punto van, which was not a very big van, but got going. And then eventually I had enough money to start getting into Japanese cars. So that was my big step, was like, now I can buy Civics and Integras and Silvias and Skylines.
And that actually is 40% more money than you'd need just 3 hours on a ferry in the other direction, because as we were talking before we came on here, doing business in Ireland, even setting up and starting to do business, everything is more expensive, right? I mean,
Ireland is a great place. I always say Ireland has great people and that's it, right? That's the way I was like, the people here are amazing. The weather's terrible. The tax system is terrible. The government is very anti anything that's individualistic, as in, if you don't have have a Kia or a Hyundai, don't bother getting an M4. You don't need an M4. Why would you need one? It's too fast. It's too much, emissions. Everything is about pushing everybody a little bit into a box to be equal. And it's, as I said, the whole country is middle class, in my opinion. Realistically, there's poverty, sure, there is, and I'm not saying there isn't, but from a percentage point, we're now the richest per capita country in the whole world, but the rich people aren't that rich, but the poor people aren't that poor. It's like a kind of a middle ground. So it's a really nice idea that everybody has, a home, everybody has Netflix, everybody has ability to survive. Not everybody, but the majority. But you lose that capitalistic side of it and an entrepreneurial side, because they punish you so much for trying to be out of the box. So high taxation. The cars are probably 40% more here than they would be. And remember, it's hard to stomach that as a car enthusiast, because 1/3 of our country is in the UK. So I can drive not even half an hour from here, and they're paying 45% less for a car than I am, which is hard to justify. But that's why, we've had our travels, and we've talked about, do we want to go somewhere else, do something else, go to the UK, go to Dubai, go to the US. But I think the Irish car scene and the people here are so passionate and such fun, like such good, they don't take themselves too seriously, that I always felt some sort of level of responsibility for here to not just go, oh, it's difficult here, I'll just leave and do something else. I kind of wanted to keep the Irish car scene enthusiastic about it, because to have a car like a JZX Chaser or something here, I mean, that's that kid's whole expendable income for the year. Like, he's living with his mom. He's got to put everything into that car just to afford to have it, with tax, insurance and everything on the road. So if those guys are so passionate about it, sacrificing so much, I remember that when I was like that. So I kind of felt like it's nice to have someone making these events, doing these things, so that they have somewhere to come and hang out. Not that I'm some sort of martyr, don't get me wrong. I make money out of this, but I always had an attachment that if we did it here, it'd be cooler than doing it anywhere else. Like, it was harder here.
And would you say out of the whole car scene in Ireland, drifting is the biggest thing that goes on, or the biggest captivator?
I would say from an audience point of view, okay, there's many metrics for this. Rallying and drifting are the two biggest motorsports in Ireland. Rallying attracts huge amounts of people to rallies, but you don't pay anything. So it's just kind of, there's a lot of people just there watching things, because obviously a rally goes through multiple towns and multiple areas. So it's hard to equate what sort of attendance that is, or is it just people outside their house watching it, or do they care about it, or do they follow it? I would say in terms of passionate following knowledge, drifting would be far higher than rallying, in terms of the more people in Ireland would know who the top drivers are, who the winning drivers are. And from a paid attendance, like we would do at one event, probably what every other motorsport in the country would do combined for the year, I would say, at one of our events.
And your first ever proper experience of that was actually commentating on something you didn't even understand.
Yes. I still don't understand. I understand it now, but I still don't understand how all of it works. I mean, this is a very, at its core, drifting is it's kind of a stupid sport. When you think about it, it's like you have 1,000 horsepower cars that aren't trying to go as fast as they can, but they are, but while spinning tires. So imagine you're trying to burn the tires off the back of your car, which I try to explain to people who know nothing about drifting, and say, you're setting your car up to not drift. You're setting it up to not spin the wheels. You're putting so much grip in the car. This is running full semi-slick tires, almost to the point where you want to spin the wheels but still move at incredible pace. And we actually found out that in Mondello Park, which is the international circuit in Ireland, it's the only circuit we have, so it's the only international one we have, that drifters now go through the corners faster than single-seater cars while drifting. There's that much power and that much grip in them that they're actually making laps almost as quick as a car just trying to drive the track. Because this is 1,000 horsepower, full grip, and the movement that they're able to put on, like the amount of squat they're able to put in the car and things now, it's crazy. When you drive a pro drift car now, it's almost the most difficult thing to drive in the world.
So for an audience member listening that's maybe more like me, that their thing is Formula One, or their thing is like almost separated completely, they'd have no understanding. Could you explain not what captivates people about drifting, but just how it works via simple steps?
It's not simple to explain, which is obviously one of the barriers of drifting, but it basically what it means is that you have a course, and generally it's 2-3 corners, or basically the idea of drifting is that it's that most of the track, or at least most of it is viewable from one position. So when you watch Formula One and you're at a corner in the grandstand, you see that corner, and then you look at the TV screens. But in drifting, the idea was a little bit more like monster trucks or something, so you could see it all from one position. So that's why I don't use a certain section of the track. That's also for tire wear as well, because the tires don't last so long. So basically what you do is you have a pro drift car. The car is designed to go sideways. So it's got more steering lock on the front, it's got more power, it's got basically a roll cage. The easiest way of explaining it is it's a rally car that is set up like a drag car with extra steering angle, is essentially what a drift car is now. And then you go through this course, and on the course, there's white boxes painted on the ground, and you've got to put your front wheels or your rear wheels through these boxes on a lap to basically score maximum points, and you get points out of 100. Now, these white boxes are obviously something you have to drive through. Everyone got really good at that, so then they decided to put those white boxes on concrete walls a lot of the time. So if you are an inch off the concrete wall, you get maximum points. You go in the concrete wall, you can tell what happens. And if you're not near the wall, you get deducted for not being brave enough. So this is kind of, and then When we get to battles, it's driver versus driver. The lead driver, everyone takes turns at lead and chase. So you get 2 runs. And the lead driver does this course through these boxes and the walls and everything. And the chase driver essentially has to mimic what they do as close as possible to them without making contact. So the closer you are mimicking what they are doing, you win the run. If you hit them or you spin or you don't get close, you lose. And over the 2 runs, the judges decide who wins and goes on to the next stage. And this can happen at now 105 miles an hour. So like this is at those kind of speeds in Europe now at this point.
I had no idea it was so high speed. I thought it was all low
Some of the
speed.
tracks will be lower speed, have lower speed sections, but yeah, now the cars. So the modern drift car at the pro level now, you've obviously seen a Tesco car park. That's where it starts. You know, a donut. You imagine this donut gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So now the donut becomes a roundabout, then the roundabout becomes an overpass on a motorway, and then it becomes a full-on racetrack. That's kind of the evolution of how it's happened. But a modern pro drift car is, you're probably going to be between 800 and 1,000 horsepower. You're going to run a 285 semi-slick tire on the back, which is about 100 tread wear, which is the softest tire you could possibly put on the car. Tire lasts about a minute, maybe, like 50 seconds to a minute.
It costs how much?
So and the tires cost 150 a tire.
Okay.
So it's roughly every car
£300 a minute.
Yeah, £300 a minute. The cars run nitrous. They run full race fuel, and they are light as possible. So you're looking at maybe one of the things people think about horsepower, but you could have a car that's 1,000 kilos and 1,000 horsepower in drifting. So it's a weapon of a thing. It would probably outpace anything on a drag strip, but it's not designed. It could, but that's not what the driver is building it for. And these cars are very expensive. They're all running sequential gearboxes, quick change rear ends. Like they may look like a 1999 Silvia, but probably the windscreen is all that's left from that night, and maybe a few bits and pieces. These are custom built to do what they do.
And the guys that are actually drifting, when we look at Formula One or we look at anything else, they'll be part of a team, and that team is paying them to be able to be in the car, to be able to afford to be there, and they bring in sponsors and put it together. How does it work in terms of drifting? If you're at pro level, how is that guy in the car, and how are they spending that kind of money on it?
Okay, so there's many different ways, and none of them are going to be as attractive as Formula One. So basically, a lot of it is self-funded. So they will be at the top level. I'm talking about pro drivers here, because a hobbyist, drifting can be you can buy a 325 BMW for £2,000, go drifting if you want, right? So that's like fun, easy, slow. It's kind of just a bit of fun. But if you get to the pro level, which is what we run at the Drift Masters level in Europe, a lot of it is based on sponsorships. So the idea with this, and we partner with Red Bull TV, and that's a broadcasted show across the world, and the audiences are very high. So there's a great scope for those drivers to be able to get professional contracts through sponsorships. So whether they're sponsored by Red Bull or Monster or lots of different companies that will come in and look for the attention or the publicity that they're getting from it. And others are more self-funded. They may have a very successful business. This would be very similar to rallying or even anything lower than Formula One, probably.
Yeah.
It's just a very successful business. They either want to drive themselves because they never could afford to do it when they were younger, or what we see a lot of their kids drive. So they basically didn't have any money when they were growing up. They built a successful business, and now their son or daughter is very passionate about motorsport, and they fund that dream. So like second generation. And then, it's a random selection of, we have 23 different countries of people doing this in Drift Masters. So they're from all over the world. So they all have different. So we have YouTubers, we have successful businessmen, we have fully sponsored drivers, we have 15-year-olds, we have 40-year-olds. And remember, in drifting, you can build to a certain extent within regulation whatever car and whatever engine you want. So drifting has this individual approach where you can put your personality into the car you're driving. So most motorsports is very, like you might look at Formula One, they're all pretty much the same car, and they're all within an inch of each other. Different color is all that you can really see, and a little different aero, right? But this is like, you could have people drive, Dodges, Chevrolet, Corvettes, Nissans, Toyotas. You can buy and drive whatever you want. There's even Ferraris competing in drifting now. But so it got a lot of different weird cars. So that gives it a bit more of a dynamic for people watching it, because you can go, oh, I'm a big JDM guy. I love Skylines and Nissans or whatever. Oh, I'm a big BMW guy. There's M4s and M2s or Chevrolets. And, you've got so many Vipers and different things that are drifting that it's almost like seeing your favorite car do something really dynamic and really cool. And also remember about drifting, and the reason it's popular is that everything you love and everyone loves about motorsport, right, is actually happening within 1 minute. So proximity of two cars to each other, that's all that happens. Tire smoke, that's all that happens. Hitting walls and crashing, that's all that happens. High speed risk is all that happens. So basically take all the exciting moments from a Formula One race, put them in a minute, and that's what you're getting.
Basically, it's the perfect motorsport for everyone with ADHD.
And I have ADHD, so that's why it's the perfect motorsport for me.
Because you can see everything within a YouTube short.
It's basically a reel of a race.
So then you summarized it at the beginning, how do you turn that into a business? Commentating on a race to think, do you know what? I'm going to monetize this.
Yeah, so this is, again, I looked at it. So I was commentating and I had a very, I love the story part of motorsport. That was a big part for me of, there's two guys are on the line. It's almost like a boxing match. So if you think of a normal race, there's 20 cars, 30 cars, and you focus on whatever the action is. But the action, as I said, is coming all the time in drifting. So you have two guys on the line, and I'd be going, why would anyone care who wins this? So then you start digging deeper into, well, this guy has this car, and that's unusual, and he's from this background, and this is what he does. And the other guys, so you could have, we've had battles in Ireland between a sheikh from Abu Dhabi and a 14-year-old school kid from Cork. Like, this would never happen in any other motorsport. So I started looking into that, saying, you know what, there's something here in this almost crazy matchup stuff, of people from different walks of life, different backgrounds. And when I took over, I very much influenced it on the WWE, because I was like, well, these guys have to make characters out of everybody that's there. They can't just say, this guy's really good at wrestling, that's his thing. You know what I mean? So they have to have like, oh, this guy is evil, or that guy is the good guy, the bad guy, whatever. So I started playing that into real people now that we're doing real things, but giving them a story, giving them a background, giving them a character. And that created fan bases for all of the individual drivers that were there. And that brought the people in, because now they didn't want to just come watch the drifting. They came to watch their favorite driver try and take on this guy or that guy, or this guy from Australia who's a bit of a loudmouth is saying that he's going to beat everybody in Ireland. People would turn up and cheer on the Irish, so it became this whole story behind the scenes. And then I expanded that, obviously, when I went to the UK and Middle East and Europe, where you had even more stories and more people. So very much the story of why you want someone to win. And remember, that's exactly why you watch Formula One and you don't watch, like, say, Formula 3 the same, because you don't have the same attachment to the drivers. Like in Formula One, it's really, you don't really care who wins. It's not, or what car wins. You care who wins. It's like, you want to see that particular driver that you followed through their career or seen Drive to Survive, right? So Drive to Survive is the reason everyone watches F1 these days, because they got a personal attachment to the drivers. And now, my wife, who doesn't care less about Formula One, watched Drive to Survive and then watched Formula One going, oh, I really like him. I hope he does well.
I need Drift to survive now.
Exactly. And well, we were working on it. But I said, that's the thing. It was like, I care, and then you take it into account where, Drift Masters, which is the biggest championship now in Europe, which we're a part of. We went to a stadium in Poland last year and put 56,000 people in it. And that sold the stadium out. And that's because you have 23 countries trying to win the biggest drift event of all time. So the Irish rock in with their flags and their face paint. And then you've got the Finns that run in, and the Polish guys are obviously the hometown heroes. So it becomes like a football match of 23 different countries, which is a lot of atmosphere. And that's what we capitalize on with drifting. Because remember, you sit in your seat, and just like a concert, you watch the whole thing from start to finish. You don't miss one corner, one crash, one wall. So it has a very universal appeal dynamically, that I can see everything that's happening. There's loads of crashes and smoke and tire smoke and bangs and flames and whatever. I've got countries invested and characters invested. So we made it sort of like a WWE for motorsport show, as opposed to, I've always said, it's motorsport entertainment, not true motorsport. And I don't think that's a disservice to it. I think that's actually what we want, is that it's something different.
And even though, because it is the belief of many that kids' love for cars these days is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then suddenly some YouTubers that have done really well, guys included, sort of give a little bit more hope to the kind of young adults, I guess, that like hoping more kids get into it and carry it on and carry it on, carry it on, even with Teslas coming through and all the rest of it. But how much has the drifting world grown since you've been involved with it? And is it going to continue to do that?
I think so. To me, it's chalk and cheese from where I started. We started with 300 horsepower cars and, normal gearboxes and all this kind of stuff. And eventually it grew into this, like any motorsport, because it was young, it progresses fast. If you look at Formula One in the 50s to now, it's almost happened in 20 years the same way for drifting, because it's moved fast. And one thing that drifting had that Formula One in the 50s didn't have, or any other motorsport back then, is social media. So for example, motorsports back in the day had to grow through, paper publications and all those things. Very slow process. Like, you'd have to get the newspaper the next week to see who won the Formula One race, or you'd have to watch it on, you get 1 hour of it a week. You can't go and, if you want to follow Formula One now, you can watch 24 hours of Formula One if you wanted to know everything, what a guy has for breakfast. You can know. Back then, the information was quite just unique. It was like you have to search it out, but it wouldn't be that available. Now with drifting, because we broadcasted, and the biggest thing drifting did was it broadcast itself. So where every other motorsport had to use ITV or Channel 4 or whatever, drifting just live streamed it straight to your computer, straight to your phone. So therefore there was no barrier. So drifting grew so fast because it was free. It was online as a live stream, and it was quite a good, slick production. So we went straight to the source instead of having to go through the TV channels, and that grew it quite rapidly. And same now with Red Bull Media House, who broadcast our shows. They have their own app, their own platform, you know what I mean? So this is now a different world. Same as, you wouldn't be able to do this 20 years ago. You'd have to get a radio station slot and then do your interviews. Now you can just do whatever you want. And I think very much the PlayStation generation, as we call it, very much brought drifting through that way, as in it was like the outlaw, for the people, by the people kind of motorsport, and that kind of grew it from there. So it definitely capitalized on that. I know the world is very, drifting, look, it's growing rapidly fast because it's so anti-establishment, but that can also be its downfall in the future because it's very, let's say, not environmentally friendly as a motorsport, when you're pumping out tires into the sky all weekend and race fuel and all those things. But as I said, it doesn't happen every day, so it's something that...
And it's for about a minute.
Yeah, but that said, that tire is gone in a minute. So it's basically like a burnout for 2 days happening. So basically there's a lot of that stuff where we worry about how that affects in the future. Electric drift cars have been tried. They don't really work, in my opinion, they don't really work as cars, full stop sometimes. And then that's the stuff but then also remember, it becomes, people live a lot of what they do, like in the YouTube world, like vicariously through other people. So they may not be able to drift themselves, but they're very interested. Just like, as I said, people watch Formula One. I don't think I watch Formula One going, oh, I'm going to do Formula One. You know what I mean? You think about it like, I'm fascinated by this sport. And
it's kind of, as you said, with a £2,000 car, if you really wanted to, there's a level of accessibility that makes people kind of relate to it.
I think that's changing because it's getting more expensive and it's becoming a little bit more elitist because naturally, things aren't as cheap anymore as they used to be. You're not going to buy E36 now for £200. Everything old, manual and rear wheel drive has become sought after. Whereas now, if everything is moving to automatic and electric, those drift cars are now becoming more and more expensive. So that's very much what was my thought process on when we built our channel and we were doing all these JDM cars. I was going, man, it's really funny how I've spent 15 years doing this. And I've earned more money as a person day by day. And I'm now spending 10 times more of it buying the same cars I had in college for 5 times the price. So I'm literally have moved nowhere. I'm just buying the same stuff for way more money.
Just explain what your first event was. What's the memory of your first event? Right back after college.
I did an event in Mondello Park. So the first one I did was Mondello Park, which was quite easy because it was like, the one I knew would be okay. We did it as round one.
Where am I going to do this? Oh, wait, the only track in Ireland.
Yeah, and then from there, I got very ambitious very quick. So we ended up having an event where, my third event, I think I invited the champion of America, Japan, and all this to Ireland.
But that's where I pause, because how? How does that happen? How do you just, on your third event, those kids sat in their bedroom, those people in the stands, one of the 56,000 that have a twinkle in their eye when they come and watch this and think, I could do my own event, they will wonder right then, how do you invite the champion
just
of Ireland
blind
on your
confidence.
third event?
You just bullshit people at the start. Like, you just say, this is going to be the biggest event ever. You don't want to miss it. And they're like, okay, well, we'll need such and such an amount of money to do it. I'm like, no problem. We'll sort that out. And you take a couple of risks and then you realize, okay, I've now all these people coming. I now need to make sure that this event makes the kind of money to pay for all this. And that's when you get to work. And the fear motivates you to market like you've never marketed before. And then it works out. And then once that works out, you go, oh, get a bit of confidence. And then you go, well, that worked out. Maybe I'll go bigger again. And then you go bigger again and bigger again.
It sounds like every event, the planning of it is actually an afterthought.
I'd say that it's not as much of what I would say is the planning of an event is quite, formulaic, right? But the marketing, what the attraction is so I would imagine it's like a concert promoter who does a festival, right? They go, you have to get all the acts signed up before you sell a ticket. That's how that works. You can't say festival, music festival. Do you want to come to that? Who's at it? Don't know. So you have to go and get like all those acts in, right? So that you don't go, do you want to go see the music this weekend? You've got to be, do you want to go see this app? So you got to go get your Kings of Leon, all these guys. You got to promise them all the money that they're going to get. You got to promise the stage all in, and then you sell the tickets, and you hope that the decisions you've made on what you're selling is strong enough to bring those people in. And it's the same thing with drifting. I would go, here's the lineup, here's where it is, what's happening, what makes this one different than the last one. And that's where motorsport and drifting, or my events anyway, very much, in motorsport, it'd be like round 1, round 2, and then round 3. So I can go, I'm kind of busy round 1, I'll go to round 3. You know what I mean? Whereas we were like, this weekend only, the Japanese champion, the American champion take on the Irish on a track where it's 70 miles an hour into a concrete wall. And people go, geez, I got to go see what's going on here. So they would go, and then lots of crashing and stories would you'd create that fan base. The next time we're like, well, he's coming back again to take revenge on the 15-year-old school kid and we would build those stories almost like celebrity boxing. Even though it was a genuine professional motorsport under it as a core, we would exaggerate it to a certain extent that would get people excited because people want to feed into it. That's what I want to feed into it too.
How many people went to those first events?
The first events, I think, we went from 2,000 at the first event, maybe 2,000 at the first event. The third event was at about 5, maybe 6, and then the fifth event, that was one season of 5 events, and the fifth one I think we did 11,000. So we'd grown it quite fast that year.
Was it always then about, like, as a business plan, how do you sell more tickets? How do you do more events? How do you fit it in?
This is where my only mistake came, is that I kept thinking, we'll go bigger. But I was in Ireland, and there's only so many people here. It's a population of 6 million people. And then you look how many people are actually into cars in general, not even drifting. And eventually you realize that there was a max or a cap on how many people can actually afford, travel, be into this sport or whatever. So we got to that point where, I think we calculated there was 25, maybe 26,000 people in the country that would be passionate enough if everybody went to the one thing. So eventually you start to run out of market, you know what I mean? So you go I can't go any bigger. I can't do any more with this. So that frustrated me with the Irish Drift Championship to a certain extent. And then I bought out the British Drift Championship 3 years after that. I started the Irish one. So I then had 2. And also this was me just looking at cash flow because I was going, I'm only doing 5 weekends a year of income and the rest of it's all expenditure. So then you go to 10 events, it makes it a little easier. Then in the winters, because it's so cold and miserable here, we would go to the Middle East and we ran events in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Saudi, Oman, all these different places. And we would have this 12-month thing, could hire employees. You couldn't have employees if they were just sitting around for 6 months doing planning. There was no income. So we expanded quite rapidly. And then when we got to Europe, we went, here we go. Now people can fly from all these different countries to this one weekend. It's a weekend away. It's a bit of a weekend holiday. You can go and see drifting. You can hang out in the city. You can get a bit of tourism. Now we have. So we start going 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 56,000 people last year, which was the highest attendance event in the history of drifting.
That's flipping awesome.
But remember, that's what you have to sell them. You're going, come to a stadium in Poland. Beyonce was here the week before and Harry Styles is here the week after. And we're going to build the track in 3 days, tarmac the whole track inside the stadium, and then in 48 hours tear it all down and bring it all out again. So people are like, I gotta go see this. What's this about? And then, because by the time we had we were finished with the after party was at the track, and we looked down. When we were leaving the after party, the tarmac was already gone. So it was 5 hours after they'd already ripped up all the tarmac for the track. So this is nuts stuff, right? But from where we came from. But also remember that, again, you tell something so ridiculous, they go, I got to go see this. I got to go see what this is all about. And now you're grabbing all those 5,000s from all these different countries and bringing them all to one place for one weekend.
Where was the moment that you do you ever get a chance to pause and look around at 56,000 people and go, whoa?
That event was very overwhelming because I've never seen people as a blur before because they were so high up in the stadiums. I couldn't even see them as people. It was this is wild. But I don't think because you're so busy and you're so nervous and you've got so much anxiety over something going wrong that you don't actually take anything in. Like people used to say, oh, did you ever do, like even when we had our HQ, or you're always on the next, we're very busy. I work, definitely a workaholic of what we do. Like I don't take any breaks. My wife never, she's so furious at me all the time because I'm never off my phone. 2 a.m, I'm on Facebook Marketplace trying to buy a car, or I'm looking at some event, or I'm looking at some venue. So I don't stop ever. It's a complete obsession of mine. But you get there and you go, right, we've been talking about this for a year. We've got everything in place. And now you're just like, get through the show, that everything goes well. And I don't think you ever stand halfway through it and go, this is cool, because you're responsible for it. So you don't have time to be relaxed.
For you, is money just a means to an event, which is a memory?
Oh, money means absolutely nothing to me.
I can see it.
Like it's not to me, my dad used to say to me, he was like, when people die, they talk about the memories of those people. They never go, God, he had loads of money. Wasn't he great? You know, that's not something people say about people. God, he was very rich. Like that's not a positive someone talks about when someone dies. So he used to say, you think this amount of money or this achievement is like why you're doing it. But he goes, it's actually the journey to it is what you're going to remember. And that's all. And it's always a journey. He goes, there's no day you're going to wake up and go, I have enough money now, I'm just going to stop doing everything and just sit on my couch for the rest of my life. Why does Ed Sheeran keep making music? Like, why do these guys keep it? They're so rich, they don't need to do anything ever again. Why is Taylor Swift dropping new albums?
Because what I see...
Because it's obviously not just about money. It's about what you're passionate about. It's about making history and also making an impact. Like, as in, I think if I ran a company that sold pallets, for example, even if I sold the most pallets in the world, I don't think anyone would care. Do you know what I mean? It's just pallets are a thing that people need, but they don't go, God, I'm really passionate about pallets. Whereas what we're doing, people are passionate about it. It influences people. People get together. They have smiles. They have laughs.
It's funny you say that. We've just looked at each other. We've both got a friend who's probably very well known to Mark McCann.
Yeah.
I'd say I don't think he'll mind me saying this. He's so kind of unpassionate about his main business. It just kind of goes. And then he just lets it all out when he goes into automotive.
But that's the thing. For me, I just couldn't do both. I didn't have the time because we're so niche and it's such a time consuming thing. I couldn't have really other businesses running at the same time as this because it's all encompassing. So I said, right, kind of make this work. I've been literally cash flow poor for 10 years because everything I've ever done, I put back in. So it was, and as long as I could pay the boys and as long as we could go on these adventures and I could somehow justify buying some of these cars, I didn't really care that much, you know. Like, I mean, like to me, if you offered me 50 million euro to stop doing it, I wouldn't take that as a deal. And I'm not selling my company. I'm not trying to buy out of the company. I'm never going to sell it. I just want it to go as far as it can go. And that's the problem, is that it's about, I would do this until I was 65, retire with very little money left and go, man, I have some amount of memories from all of that. And some amount of stories that if I sit down and tell you, some of them I can't repeat, obviously, over the last 10 years, but you meet so many characters. I mean, I've been in the middle of the desert petting cheetahs in Abu Dhabi. I've been to, I've hung out with T-Pain in LA a couple of weeks ago. You know, you go to Japan and you're street drifting through the streets at night. These are things that you couldn't even have paid to do if you had all the money in the world. And they just happen on this journey because it's such a passionate group of people that end up meeting different people. And I've been in situations where I've gone, how am I here? What am I doing here? Why is this a thing? How did I get here? And that's what I like about it, the unpredictability. And also the fact that I can look across in these crazy situations at boys that I brought from, who worked in call centers, who worked in IT, and they're rock stars now, you know, in these, you know, they're living that life. So I'm going, that to me is such a proud moment.
Your audience sees that because the minute a couple of people on Instagram picked up that we're in Ireland, they knew what we would be here for, to sit down with you guys. And some lad messaged me this morning, he said, the thing I love about the relationship in Drift Games, and I watch the YouTube channel, is the fact that Dave has brought in not people because of what they're qualified to do. He's brought in people that he can actually spend time with, because if he couldn't spend time with those people, it just wouldn't work.
It's intense. Like, you'll do 24 hours a day, 2 hours sleep with people. Like, if they grate on you, there's no way. And we all have such unique personalities. And again, another thing, I got advice from my dad. He always said, whenever hiring someone, never hire the same person twice. As in, don't have people in your company that are the same personality, because they won't complement each other. They'll just be the same. So I have in there in that we're in a temporary office right now, and there's 8 of us in the company, including my dad, who now retired and then decided to help me with the bookkeeping and the admin stuff, because one, I couldn't afford him, and two, he thinks it's fascinating what we're doing. He thinks it's really funny how we're still a company, and he doesn't he just says he doesn't know what to say to me anymore. He's like, I thought this would be off the rails 8 years ago.
You may relate to what I'm on about. I played music as a kid. I love playing the drums, absolutely fascinated by it, still do, to kind of just get away from everything. And when sometimes you're into music, you see a lot of colours and also see stuff as like an animation in your head. When you're talking about your journey and the things that you've done, like that stadium, 56,000 people, I see it as a dot with like a line going to it, like a thick line to all these different events and things that you've done and places along the lines and the unit and the street inside. It's all these things that you've wanted to get to and achieve and do. And then I see this really thin little line underneath it, which is just the money, which is just like, okay, hang on, we need some of that to get to there. I need to piece it together to make it happen. It's really annoying that we need this currency.
My dad would do a lot of the books. Like, he doesn't control anything in the company. He just a process.
Make sure you don't go bankrupt.
even at that, he says it's a struggle, but he would just say, like, look, here's my projection, here's what I think. When I go, hey, I want to do this, run the numbers and see if that makes sense, which it usually doesn't. And then I think at the end of last year, we probably had our most successful financial year. And this was, again, this could be like, unpredictable. Like you go to an event and you could gain, sometimes I think one events you might make $250,000 in an event, and then another event you could lose $200,000. So you've no idea. Rain comes in, something doesn't sell, the location isn't right. So it's a gamble. It's like a roulette table with events. You go, right. So my attitude was, the more you do, the more the roulette table evens off, right? Because if you do one big event a year and it goes bad, you're gone. You know what I mean? So if you do 10 big events a year, 2 might go terrible, 8 might go okay. So then that'll balance off the 2. So we had a good year last year. And then coming out of COVID, everybody was so hungry to go to events. I mean, there was a festival on top of a festival everywhere you went because people couldn't do anything for so long. Now they wanted to go see everything. So we did really well on the back of that. And then we got to the end of last year with some money in the bank for the first time, I think, ever. And I was like, we're going to build a Lamborghini drift car. We're going to do this, do that. And then everyone's like, oh my God, we were almost it was so safe, so secure. And I was like, no, we're going to build a Lamborghini. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And the boys are always like, all right, here he goes again. So they'll jump in and do that. And I bought the Lamborghini, but then I ran out of money. So I needed a body kit. So I was like, you know what? We really want this Liberty Walk body kit from the guys in Japan, but we didn't know them. I'm going to give you this story because it's exactly how my company's worked for 10 years. So I went to Josh, who's the longest in the company with me. So he's there since the start. And I said, you know what we should do? We should go to SEMA in Vegas and we should try and get sponsorship.
I've been last year. Amazing.
It's amazing. So I was like, we'll go there and we'll go get this body kit, right? And we're going to, because I know Liberty Walk are there. We'll get a meeting with them and whatever. So we went there. We don't know anyone in Liberty Walk. And I was like, okay. So we flew in, and this is no joke. We just arrived at our hotel. We just went to go get some food, and we're coming out of there, and the CEO of Liberty Walk is walking towards me, and he's with a guy that I know who's from Holland. And I'm like, this is weird, because this is like a media guy. He was like a camera guy. So I remember at an event previously, this is like going way back 5-6 years ago, this kid didn't have public liability insurance to shoot an event. And he was really upset about it. He was only starting off. And I said to him, hey, we'll cover your public liability. You seem like a nice kid. Just, we'll cover you, whatever. Didn't think anything of it. Move forward 5 years. He's now the videographer for Liberty Walk. So they come in the door and they're like, hey, Dave, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, so I managed to, because of this guy, get a meeting with Liberty Walk. So we're like, brilliant. So we got a meeting with Liberty Walk like the next day at 10 o'clock, and they get overwhelmed. Don't show. We're like, all right, that's the end of that. So then we decide, we're very annoyed about this situation. So Josh and I decide to go out for a few drinks, go out on a night out, blow off some steam. 3 o'clock in the morning, we go down to the roulette table. I sit right down beside the CEO of Liberty Walk randomly. I start talking to him. We tell him the story. He says, we'll send you a kit. We're happy to do it. I was like, this is it. Me and Josh celebrating. Like, we got the kit. Kit's 30 grand. So like for us, it was like a lot, because we were getting really low on funds at the time. And then he forgot because he was obviously drunk. So we had to go back to Japan to go try and make this deal happen. And we did in the end. So then we build the car, we build the kit. And we're doing this collaboration with Liberty Walk. Liberty Walk are like trying to explain to my wife. I was like, it's like the Gucci of the car world to me. They're so cool. And they do
I'm not that detached.
yeah. But I was like, for your audience, maybe, I was like, they're so cool. We actually, and then we're doing this merch line with them. It's a proper collaboration. I was like, we're trying to impress them. All of those things happen. And then obviously we unveiled the car. They're pumped on it. We're pumped on it. 2 days later, the car is burnt. And then 3 days after that, they call me, and I'm thinking they're going to call me now and go, hey, you guys, we gave you this $30,000 body kit. It's now ashes. What are we going to do? Because we have a contract that you would go to all these events with that car and promote Liberty Walk. And they're sitting there, full 20-man team, saying, we're going to send you our Liberty Walk Murcielago from Japan to continue your tour for the rest of the way. And you can put your livery on it, do whatever you want to do. And this comes from me walking through a hotel door with a guy that I met as a photographer 5 years before that I didn't know anything about. That's how every story has been for 10 years. It's not about strategy as much. Like, we have strategy and marketing and all that stuff, don't get me wrong, that all happens. But it's about being really nice to people, being respectful to people, and that will come back around in the future. Because it's like, you do nice things, even sometimes you go, oh, he's really annoying, but I'll let him do this, or, you know, people, whatever. And then it all comes back around. And then just saying yes to things, being opportunistic.
This podcast.
And just saying, oh, you know what's the worst that can happen?
You answered I sent you a message in a time that you must have been absolutely swarmed. I had a reply within an hour? Yeah, let's do it.
Because everything's yes. Like, why wouldn't I? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I find that everything with us is like, yeah, cool. We've taken gigs in Saudi Arabia on 5 days notice and gone, okay, and we'll just go, and then we go there, and then it's an absolute mess, but then you get it done, you get through it, it's a challenge, and then at the end of it, you're going, what a story. We have some stories we went to Saudi Arabia once and hung out with Bill Goldberg from WWE and Richard Rollins, and we were like, what are we even doing here? How is this happening? A bunch of guys from Ireland, and they're asking us, like, what are you guys doing here? We're like, we don't know. We got a call 5 days ago to come and run a drift event. So a lot of very good stories, and the big thing about all of it for me was that it was just about keeping the show on the road and like keeping going and moving forward. And like, it never really was about like a cash out or making loads of money. People would see a lot of cars and they would go, oh, you've loads of money because you've loads of cars. Like, at one point we had loads of cars, but they would say, loads of cars. I'm going, yeah, but I could have loads of apartments that you wouldn't know anything about and make way more money. So it's not about money as such, you know, like, if this buying stupid Japanese old cars is not like a very good way to spend your money, because they all break, they cost a fortune, and then do what we do them, chop them up, take the value out of them and make them unique is even worse. So it's like, it's not really a money game. It's just, you know, 15-year-old Dave wants to have cool stuff and wanted a street and wanted all this stuff. And it kind of was like never growing up again, I guess. Like, just saying, you know, I don't have to, because I'm, you know, late 30s, go, I have to now settle down and do this or do that, or I don't have to do all these things. And I'm very lucky that my wife is very supportive of everything I do to a certain extent, and then also terrified all the time of our mortgage and what's happening. But she's very understanding. And a lot of people say, how do you spend so much time away? And she's there day one. So like, I started the company on a PC, not even a laptop, on her dad's kitchen table 10 years ago. So she knows that it came from that to this, to Lamborghinis with Liberty Walk. So she's not there for money or clout. She's just like, it's hilarious how all this has happened. And she's like, I don't even understand how this happened. So she said, you know, last year we had a very busy year, went to the stadium, 56,000 people. She was there. And she goes, this is mad. Like, from that first event to this, she goes, well, I can't tell you to stop. I can't tell you to not do it, because this is mad. So very understanding team, very patient team at times. And they'll all question what I do. But I'm a very patient wife. And my parents being very supportive of everything I do is a lot of the reason I'm successful, because I have great people around me. And then I want to reward them by working hard and making sure that it wasn't all for nothing. So that's kind of the motivator for me, not money as such.
And it wasn't that long ago that all transpired into you getting into the unit, which is just down the road from here, or what's left of the unit just down the road from here. Well, I watched your video with the coolest street, as we said at the beginning, idea sparked from Hogwarts, all got your garages inside there with the cars. Did you feel at that point like there was like a level, did the Lamborghini's there, it's got the kit on it just 2 days before?
2 days we finished the car, yeah.
You must have felt like you were peak on top of the world.
We'd bought a race trailer because we were going to Europe with this big race trailer, and we took a loan for it, but it was really cool. And the whole winter had kind of been this plan of like, we're going to get to this one day in April, which is a show called Dubshed in Northern Ireland. And not specifically because of the show, but because it was an indoor show in Ireland. So I was like, we can set everything up, see how it's going to look for Europe. It's like a trial run. All the branding, the merchandise launch. I even stopped selling merchandise for 2 or 3 months because I wanted to rebrand with this new logo, with the Liberty Walk stuff, with the Lamborghini. So I said, well, there's no point just casually putting out a social media post saying, yeah, we got a new logo there, just in case you didn't notice. We were like, put it on the door of the Lamborghini. That's the thing everyone's going to see. All the cars already. So we had spent like between the liveries, the design, the builds, the marketing, getting the truck going to Holland. I think we picked up the truck, building all these cars for this one moment. So I was like, this is the European tour. We started here and then we go to all these 7 or 8 different countries for the rest of the year. 250,000 people in the flesh. We're like, this is a big year. So we had everything ready. We'd redesigned everything. So it was a lot of work. So the boys were working late nights, like weekends, just, doing crappy stuff that isn't that entertaining in a video, like cleaning off stuff, polishing, packing things. And we had custom merch cabinets and out of toolboxes, all very creative. So we got to that show, set it all up. None of us had seen it all together because it was all being built separately. We got there and we set it all up and we were like, oh my God, this setup is insane. Like compared to the 3x3 tent we bought in Lidl when we started, you know what I mean? This is like amazing. Like we have this huge thing. And I was like, I can't believe that. Even it was sort of surreal. Like I was like, I own this truck and I own this Lamborghini. This is really bizarre and I was like, we all own this, but it's kind of like, this is mad. Like we look like a real professional race. Cause we're all idiots behind the scenes. So we're going, people will think we're like a real, serious deal here. Like, and then I was thinking, but Liberty Walk, probably idiots behind the scenes and they just have a lot of cool stuff and you think they're, every company is probably the same. So we were standing back, and this was before the show started, and we were like, we had the Lamborghini covered, and because we were revealing it at the show, and we were like, everything looks amazing, couldn't be happier. Next day, revealed the Lamborghini, and everyone's pumped on it. It's like, gets a huge ovation, like for an Irish build, like it's like a 850 horsepower, 2JZ powered Lamborghini Liberty Walk kit, custom interior, custom suspension, custom angle kit, custom wheels, one of one, everything on the car, so we were like, this is a total build from scratch for us. There wasn't much Gallardo left in it, but it was very cool. It was kind of JDM, bride seats, like it was really our style. So then we were like, cool, pack everything up, and we were coming back home down the road, very proud of everything, and a little celebration, actually. That's what we were saying. Maybe we were tempting fate. We actually celebrated that weekend. We all went out as a team. We were like, well done, everyone. Put all the work in over the winter. We're ready to go. Start the season. And then the next day we took off because we didn't get back to like 2 or 3 in the morning. And then that day it was raining. And the Tuesday I looked at my phone. It was the only day that had any sunshine on it. So I was like, man, the truck was across the road. So I was like, if we have to unload all these boxes of merch and cars and everything in the piss and rain, I'll be like, this is going to be miserable. So I said, this is the dry day. Everyone get together. We'll bring all the cars, all the merch, everything we have, put it all inside, and we'll spend the rest of the week tidying it up inside rather than being out in the rain. And then about an hour and a half after I left the place, then it was gone. Well, it wasn't gone, but it was on fire. So it was a very unfortunate thing, from the highest high to the lowest lows in like 3 days. I think it was just like surreal, almost like unfair. It's the way I think we all felt. That we were so close to the perfection of what we wanted.
Did you just get like a phone call?
So I have the fire alarm on my phone, and Cian, who's our general manager, has the fire alarm as well. So basically the fire alarm alerted. Now, I don't usually check because I travel so much and Cian isn't traveling as much. He usually just checks in on that. So I see it happen. And then I just messaged Cian. He said, I checked the cameras, everything looks fine. So he reset the alarm, bam, went off again. And then he reset it, bam, went off again. He was like, that's weird that it just keeps going off. And then he looked at the camera and he could see the smoke pouring in under our door. So he rang the owner of the building, one of the owners, and they just rang back. They just literally said, building's on fire, hung up. Then he rang me, building's on fire, hung up. When someone hangs up and says building is on fire, they're already leaving to go. So I just got in the car, went quite rapidly, not knowing if I was going to get there and have to grab an extinguisher kind of thing or what was going on. But I just ran out the door. I remember my wife was just like, just ran. It's on fire, and ran out the door. I didn't say what was on fire. I just ran out the door. And just as how quickly I got there, I remember that I got into my had a Touareg at the time, and which I sold recently, and it was 185 kilometers when I left my house. It's about 20 minutes away, and it had 4 when I got there. That's how hard I drove there to get there. I got there in about 11 minutes and a 30-minute drive, thinking I got to get in there and save what I can. So when we got there, the police were there. They'd blocked off the building, and it was really on fire. Like, it was bad. Like, the roof was on fire. There was probably 40-foot flames at one side of it. We didn't really know what had happened. We didn't. But at the same time, you're kind of thinking, oh, it's on the other side of the building. So surely, there's all fire people, marshals here and whatever, or fire brigade. So I was like, they're going to put this out. We're going to have some smoke damage. This is going to be a mess. We're going to have to, clean everything. We're going to have to, all that stuff. I was like, oh, the place will stink for weeks. And that's what I was genuinely thinking.
Trying to manage.
Yeah, going like, oh, it's an inconvenience, but like, it'll be all right. Like, we'll clean it up. Then didn't kind of stop for a while, and I started seeing smoke coming from like the cracks of the glass on our windows, and so it was like really high pressure. So after a while, the smoke was pretty heavy coming out of our place, and this is all closed up, so it's coming through like the shutter door sides, everything. So I'm like, everything's kind of smoke damaged now, like pretty badly, but. Again, still thinking probably be able to get a car out, you know what I mean? It won't have melted anything. But unfortunately for where our place was, the building, where our street was, used to be a fridge. So it was actually a meat processing plant, that whole building. So we had a fridge. So it's a really, really well insulated area, which is great for us because it wasn't that cold. Like, it was nice temperature. So it was very thick steel, very, very insulated. So unfortunately, what actually happened was, our place became an oven because the roof didn't give. So basically, when it went on fire, the temperatures, the fire guy said to me, they sent 2 people in the back, 2 people at the front. They came back out saying that it was 620 degrees or something in there. So they were like, it's just a microwave, it's an oven. And there was no release of the pressure. So the fire was in this enclosed space that it couldn't, they couldn't get water to it. They couldn't get anything to it. So then it went up, like, this was probably 4 to 6 hours later. By the time it had spread the whole way around the building, the fire.
You stood the whole time watching
The whole time
this.
watching it, yeah. And we did what we could. So, I hate standing around doing nothing. So we went running into other parts of the building. We took out Porsches and Subarus and Impalas and anything we could get out of the other parts.
So they were letting you get into like the other parts of the building?
Not in. They were kind of on the outside. But basically, yeah. So because I was an owner of the building, an owner of a business. The owners of the business were allowed. Everyone else was way, way back because it was very dangerous. But we were allowed there because we were explaining to the fire marshals the layout of the building on the inside because they didn't know what was in there, whether there was chemicals, whether there was gas. They didn't know when to send people in or out. So they were kind of using us as like, well, this is a stairwell and that goes there. But if you go up there, there's a thing there. They wanted to know what was in there because it's an unusual building. Like, it's a lot of different bits going on. And look, so we were there, but then it was a chaos. We were trying to get cars, because we were car guys. We were trying to get cars out of these, not our cars. Our cars were definitely like not getting out of there. But other people's customer cars that were like, maybe their pride and joy. A lot of the cars in there would have been very rare, very unique. And then we had police threatening to arrest us because we were getting into other people's cars, but we're like, this car won't be here if we don't get it out of here. But then the police guy was like, I don't even know what's going on. It was chaos because the fire marshal trying to put fire out, the police trying to have some sort of order. We're running in because we know where the cars are to get these cars out in the smoke and get them into the car park just out of the building. And then a lot of that's a blur to me kind of now. But then I do remember it went up, and it went up really bad. And then at that point, I'd say when the smoke came out the shutters and stuff, I knew it was bad. As in everything up there was going to be damaged. But then when it burned completely to the ground, like when it was 8-foot flames out the windows and stuff, I was like, yeah, that's done. Like, everything's done up there. So I knew to a certain extent it was a complete loss. But you don't in that moment really think about anything other than like the practical, which is strange. Like you're emotionally devastated, but you're too much in shock. So you're literally going, right, is everyone okay? Send my wife home because she's been in the cold for 4 hours watching this. You're starting to think like, right, tomorrow we'll do this. Where will we go? What will we do? So you start kind of getting into an action plan just to do something because you can't actually accept really what's going on, I'd say. And you it's very hard.
Isn't me trying to win brownie points or say whatever. When I watched that video, and I watched it last night on the ferry, so it was fresh coming over, and I just could not believe the courage that you showed in that video, and for your whole audience to see that is fantastic.
But I think I mean, we spoke about this, and luckily Lucas. So Lucas is a guy that works for me. We call Bandana Boy, but he's a long time in drifting, and he's say newish as opposed to our team. And because he's newish to the team, he knew what it meant, but he wasn't as attached. You know what I mean? He didn't build the place, he didn't build the cars. He's kind of been in since maybe January, maybe December kind of time. So he started filming, and then it was like you could see some of the other guys were like, come on, is this really the time to be filming or whatever? And then Lucas, he said something to me, he goes, "You're going to want to see this when we build it better the next time." And at the time you're like, shut up, Lucas. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're going, but he was right. It's like he said, this is part of the story, this is part of the journey, it has to be filmed. And I didn't really even know it was being filmed. That's why I swore quite a lot in that video, because I would never really, I always wear a hat and I never swear. Those two things went definitely out the window in that
Definitely
video.
different to my last guest from Ireland.
So I was like, that's that. I tried to keep it pretty PG on our stuff, and I was like, obviously it was emotion. I didn't really realize what was going on, but I remember, I don't remember making the video so much the next day, and I do remember going in. So it was a weird moment where the police said we're handing it back to the owners. So I went up and I filmed what you see in the video, and that was the last time anybody was in there, because about 2 hours after that, it went back on fire again. The building went up again. And then the next day it went back on fire again. And the real worry that we had was that at the back of that building, there's an alloy wheel repair business, which has big vats of acid and loads of chemicals and gases and all that stuff. And then about 40 feet from the side of the building is one of the biggest tire yards in Dublin. So the fire brigade at one point had to make a decision to let our place burn in order to stop the fire spreading to those two areas. And this is something we learned afterwards, but I think they were absolutely right, because if it had caught the tire yard, it probably would have taken another 10 units down, half Dublin down. There was that many tires there. And then on the other side, who knows, acid blowing up all over the place. So that was, luckily no one was hurt. Everyone got away with what had happened. But it was like,
where do you get that control of emotion from? You were controlled in that situation, or were you dying inside, or were you still?
I think definitely in shock. I think, like, what I've noticed before is, like, say it's happened a lot of times in drifting where a car goes on fire or my car goes on fire. You sort of have this weird moment where you go, I need to put the fire out, but you don't really understand the gravity of the situation. You're just kind of you just react. And I think in that moment, I definitely think it's hard because remember, our buildings our units on the second floor, so you can't physically see in there. And I think it was only the next day when I went to see the cars all burnt that I was like, oh God, like this is because outside you see the fire, but you don't really connect them in your head, And I think I travel a lot. So I think last year I did 5 months out the country. So when I am, say, anywhere, I would always think, oh, I'm here, but all my stuff is here, So I think a part of my brain was going, no, it's fine. All your stuff is somewhere else. This is just happening. So there's a bit of that. And then obviously phones blowing up. Everybody's, the support is incredible from everybody in our community, and it's amazing. But you're sort of going, oh, it looks like I'm at my own funeral. I don't it's very strange. And we're not a big fan of sympathy or empathy, kind of like being the person that's bringing the fun to everybody. That's the role I've given myself for 10 years. Like, I'm the one putting the event on. You're coming to have a good time, smile. This is your weekend off from your work. You know what I mean? You come and have a good time. And now you're in this kind of misery, depression situation where you feel like you're almost letting people down because they shouldn't. This drift games thing shouldn't be a low or a down or whatever. It should be an escape, should be fun. So it was kind of a weird one to film those things where it's like, now I'm kind of going, ugh, everything's wrecked.
But if there's one thing that I've learned so far from this podcast, it's that even though businesses and it's like this van is the place that hosts this podcast.
Yeah.
But if the van burnt down, the podcast would continue because I can put the microphones on the desk somewhere else. Yep. Even though the van was a symbol of everything that's come together to make the podcast, when you tell me about what is Drift Games, from what I've understood from this episode, it is a collection of friends coming together to work together. Don't really understand how the hell it's even being financed, but somehow it is.
And you're in the same position I'm in with that.
Crazy idea is moving along at a hell of a pace. But Drift Games is inside a stadium in Poland with 56,000 people. Drift Games is in whatever office you can throw together with 8 people, putting stuff out on social media and creating content that makes people smile. Drift Games is taking somebody like me that has no idea what drifting is at all, why I should be interested in it when I'm not interested in cars that look a certain way and I like supercars, and sitting after an hour and thinking, why the hell am I watching F1? This sounds amazing. So from what I've learned, a fire in a building, which is just as you said, the bit that people see financially, and a collation of all the things that you can put somewhere and put a pin in a map and say, that's us. I don't really think it is. I think Drift Games is everything else that you've discussed on this podcast
100%.
episode. But that being said, you seem like the kind of guy that would take a situation like what's happened and try and make some sort of light out of it. Do you think there's any way you can look at this and think, this is horrendous, and the first week and the first 2 weeks is just starting to process all of this. This is really bad. But I witnessed a little moment just before you got in this van that showed me already that there is going to be absolutely no stopping the mischievous nature inside of you guys from doing something, which is when you pulled up in your brand new Dodge Challenger 2 cars away and went, do you know what? All I had left was a Jeep, so I got rid of it. And here's my new Dodge, because I just needed something.
I felt lack of identity, I think, last week, because I was like, oh, everything that makes me, this is definitely not what anyone would say, but how my brain was like, everything that makes me interested. So that place had 10 years of memorabilia. Every story or every piece that we brought back with us, signed merchandise, racing gloves, helmets, different things we would have collected over 10 years were all in there. So I would walk in some days and go, oh yeah, remember we were there, or remember we were there and that thing happened. And I felt all of it was just kind of erased. All my cars erased. Excuse me. And I went home and I have in my house, I don't have anything really drift related, because I was like, I had the ultimate man cave. I just put everything in there. My house is nice and whatever, but I was like, it's just a house. I have pictures of being married and I have normal family stuff, but I don't have anything to do with Drift Games, because that was all in the unit, because I was like, that's what represents that. Essentially that place was a man cave that I could never have the space to build up my house, and I built it there. So I felt when I woke up, because a couple of days later, people are very, very on top of it, and then life moves on and people have their own stuff going on, and then eventually you're kind of realizing that as the days go on, it becomes more of your problem than everybody's problem. You know what I mean? Like, you're on your own at the end of it. Really, we're sitting here, 8 of us today on a Monday or Tuesday, and the phone stops ringing, offering help, and people, not that people are not great, they're amazing, but people have other lives. This isn't like life or death for other people, and you start going, oh, I don't really have a place or cars or anything. I felt like I'd kind of lost my identity, like of being different or being a bit quirky or whatever. I'm just like a normal person now that drives a Volkswagen, and nothing wrong with driving a Volkswagen, but from where you're coming from, of this building, this 10 years of trying to be creative and interesting, and not trying, but doing things that are a bit out the box, and build a sort of collection of cars that you're so passionate about because they're yours. They're not like, I don't have a Corvette, I have the Corvette. Like, this one is one of one. Everything on it has 4 years building it. It's something that no one else has ever seen in the world before. I can't just go and buy that again. And I don't think I'd even have the heart to build it again. So I was like, oh, I need to buy something that's a bit stupid and it doesn't make any sense. So I went and I bought the stupidest car I could, which is not even a car that I would love. It's a car that I would just go, this is why we did this in the first place. Stupid decisions, and dig yourself out of it. Do something on your heart, not your head. Dig yourself out of it. That's almost the fun of it. It's like, why would you buy in Ireland a car like that? It just makes no sense. Every other car is better than that car. But I like it, and it's stupid, and it's cool, and it puts a smile on my face. So that's why I bought it. So trying to remember that core value of what we do is a big part of what we're trying to do now, is go, well, what makes us happy? What makes us cool? What makes us not cool, but what makes us, like, what's cool to us? Like, what's a cool car to us? What's different? And we're out of time this season to try and build something from scratch. So we're going to try and scramble some cars together, scramble some projects together. A lot of help from a lot of people to be able to get back going again. But I think financially, as I said, you've understood that financially is not, everyone talks about money in the cars. When everyone said, like, oh, hundreds of thousands of euros of cars are gone, and then they start talking about insurance, they'll cover. I'm like, that's all the bit that was irrelevant for me. It was like, I don't care how much they cost, I don't care how much I get back. That's not why I had them. I had them because they were a story. I made memories along the way with those cars. I met people. We stayed in garages for 4 hours eating terrible chips, trying to finish those cars. That was what those cars were to me, was an accomplishment of a group of people. I could go and buy 10 cars tomorrow morning if I got all my insurance money back, but none of those cars mean anything to me. They're just cars. So these were cars that we built. And that's the bit that I don't think people get unless they've built a car over a year or two period where you're like, most of this was horrible. Most of this was a delay or a problem solving, or you get to a corner of the suspension and go, oh, that didn't work out the way we want to. Now I've got to figure something else out. That was the reason the problem solved. That was almost like a trophy. They were like trophies, not cars. Like that was, we got there. We somehow afforded it. We made this mad thing. All these people came together from all over the world to help us. We built it and then we revealed it and we had a great memory with that, or we went on an adventure with it. So that's kind of the bit that's a bit, I would say, kind of heartless in the way people look at those things. They're more sentimentally valuable than any amount of money to me. And as you can see, money is not the reason I do it.
Which I can understand. But definitely the thing with the unit and the cars and the sentimental value of the cars inside and all the things that you loved, when it burned, you guys obviously titled the video, Everything is Gone.
Yeah.
Sometimes as a YouTuber or a brand owner or someone that creates content, you're doing everything through the lens of a camera. That piece of glass over there is your route to hundreds of thousands of people. But the thing that can never be gone when you built a business like this is the support of your audience that you've built, because they've spent time investing in watching all those videos on your channel, all those millions and millions of views and impressions, and moments like I've had here where you've inspired me to go, and I generally will go to something or go and have a look at something or try something new. That no fire can ever get rid of that. It would take a nuke. So like in the days after, part of the business being gone, not all of the business being gone, or the core value of the business, or how you're going to move on from here, and the people aren't gone for sure, where are you going to go? Have you got any plan, or are you just like,
no, I always have a plan, and that plan, I mean, I didn't sleep until I got a plan. I didn't stop until I got a plan. That's the one thing I don't like, is not knowing. Even if the plan is ambitious and outrageous and silly and whatever, I just need something to go. Even if that plan changes, it doesn't matter. Just have to have a plan. Because when you walk into a temporary office, 2-3 days, 4 days after this, you have 7 employees worried about their jobs, worried about the investment that they put the best years of their life into this dream. Are they going to be, able to work here? What's going on? You've got to steady that ship and make sure everybody is okay. So the first thing was everybody who lost something in the fire that wasn't company property, that's the first thing to be reimbursed. So for example, because this is not going to be going out today, right? So basically Adam, who's one of our best friends, he works so hard on this business. He built an MX-5 beyond any MX-5 I've ever seen. Like, this thing had everything. He took every...
Auto Alex, get out, yeah?
Basically took every bolt off the car and zinc coated it. He built the car from literally piece by piece back up again, smoothed engine bay, engine build, everything. The car was perfect. And he found out 2 or 3 days after the fire that the insurance wouldn't cover his car because of where it was at all. 0. So he's lost, that's a lot of money, his pride and joy, and he's got a loan on the car. So like, imagine trying to come to work every week paying a loan that you don't own the car anymore. You don't have anything. So I was like, this is horrendous. So we were like, we did our merchandise. So we made some money on the merchandise that we said. So I said, look, Lucas lost his camera gear and his laptop. Boom, we get that. We're going today, because he doesn't know it because we're in the van. We're going up to show him his new project. So we bought him a car, and we put in a friend of ours dealership. So we're pretending that I've bought a car, but it's actually a car for Adam. And I'm going to give him a budget to go build this car. And then everybody else throughout that is the same. Everyone who's lost something personally, that's the first thing to be reimbursed from the company. Not because we have to, but because that's the right thing to do. Because they were part of the channel, a part of what we did. Even though they're not company property, the boys and their cars were just as much part of what we did. So I want to reimburse all of those guys first. Then we need somewhere temporary, short term, like to be like a unit or whatever, because we have cars landing from Canada, USA, Japan, all these cars that we're bringing to Europe, and we don't know where to put them. They're all landing at docks with parts, and we're like trying to put them in different people's friends' garages and stuff. So we need a unit, which has been difficult. As I mentioned before we got on the podcast, like, you're the modified car guys that came out of the fire. Like, you're really not the people that they want to do business with anymore. Even though we didn't cause the fire, had nothing to do with it. There's a stigma that comes with modified car culture, and there's a stigma that comes with, place is burning down. So we got to kind of get through those things. And then long term, I kind of feel like the only way I would see it as a positive is that if the street burnt down and I built a town, that's the only way I would look at it. Like you go from a street to a town. So I want to build a town square for cars. Like it's a proper town square. So that's the next stage. That would have to be outdoors. It needs land, needs building. I've already put pieces of puzzle of that together, but it's like a long-term thing. It's not like you can just go, I'm going to build a town next week. It'd be great. You need a lot of planning. So that's the only way I could turn around and say, yeah, we lost the street, but we gained the town. That's what I want to say in a video. You know, that's like a goal for us now. But to come losing maybe 3/4 of your assets, your business, your, you know, all your merch, to be honest with you, we have probably 10, 15 years of footage gone. Everything's gone out of there. It's like everything we've ever filmed. Even though it's on the internet, you still have the raw footage there. So like they're the things that we're just going to have to struggle on with. But I'd say at the moment I'm not as sad as I was. I'm more sad for the amount of effort that we put in that's all been kind of for nothing. But when you wake up in the morning, I kind of sometimes think maybe it's just like if you have a good movie, like say your life was a movie, there's always a bad bit in the movie where it's like, oh, everything's messed up. It's all fucked. You're never going to get out of this. And then it kind of comes good at the end, right? So that's what I'm hoping is kind of this is the lull before it comes back good again.
Where do you get that mindset from? Because
I think I've had nothing before. Like again,
crumble.
well, so money is not, as I said, sentimentality is, but money is not really the motivator. So having less or more, as long as I've got my team together, I'm happy enough. We can make the magic happen just with us. But then also, like COVID, I think I said something the other day. I think COVID was worse than this because in COVID I lost everything, but I couldn't do anything because I couldn't even leave my house. Whereas now at least I can get up in the morning and go and do things, put on events, you know, start hustling again, start going do more things again. Whereas I won't ever build anything that I lost because it's too sentimental to me, but I'll try and build new things and challenge myself and do new projects and stuff. And I hope people have the patience for that because again, you know, you get to a certain standard. I was saying to someone the other day, like Matt Armstrong, for example, like he's built this business where like he goes from an Audi TT all the way up to like a Lamborghini. But if he went back to an Audi TT now, I'm not sure people would have the patience for it. You know what I mean? Because they've been given these Marcus Rashford Rolls Royces. And then that's kind of problem where we are. It's like we don't have the money to go like just build another Lamborghini in 6 weeks. We're like, we got to kind of come back to more simple stuff. So hopefully people will still appreciate that second growth because it's frustrating for the audience too because they've watched it grow from nothing to something and now it goes back. So I hope people will stick around for it. But it's definitely a challenge. I definitely think we've grown our audience out of it, which is the worst thing in the world. Because we were like, always, you know, like you're trying to make views, you're trying to make people make content that people enjoy. And then your biggest video is the one where it all burns down to the ground. So you're like, that's definitely wasn't in a marketing meeting at one point where we were like, just burn it all down. That'll be great. I was like,
does that piss you off?
I don't think it pisses me off. I think, look, it's curiosity. It's the same as everyone turning their head at a car crash. It's like everybody wants to come and see. Did you see that video where all those boys had all those cars and it burnt down? That's very much what this is for the casual viewer. For the fans of what we do, they'll know what it means bigger than that. But then that's nice. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you know, it's the way the world works. I'm not naive to think everyone's going to be more sensitive about it. I think it's at the end of the day, if someone had been hurt or died, it'd be a far different story. But a bunch of cars, people probably go, they'll probably get insurance back. That's the way we might, and we'll build other cars. But I think it's not as simple maybe as people think that is. And I think that an insurance at the moment with it is very complicated and very difficult. So I think a lot of it for me is that if we have built this platform of people wanting to know what we do next, you will almost want to like go, yeah. But then you're also going, I have no unit. I have no cars. I don't know what to do next. So we're trying to do it slowly and get things moving.
I think the one thing that can definitely be thought out of this is it definitely seems when it comes to content and social media that people want a story. People want 100%. To see a story develop.
People are human.
And you're going to have one hell of a story over the next 12 months to be able to share with them.
I want to do 12 months. That's my thing. I want to go bigger in 12 months. I don't know how. Right now, I'm making it up as I go along every day. But I want to feel like in 12 months' time, I could show, not even for my own sake, but I could show the boys, like, because they're going to have to, in order to achieve it, the amount of work they have to do and that we have to do in that 12 months is almost less than minimum wage. I mean, they're paid well, but the hours to do. No one here goes home at 6 o'clock. No one checks their watch. No one, you know, it's not that kind of company. People work until they think they've done the job really well and it's done, or they panic themselves, or they're worried themselves, or a lot of time they're giving out to me about, why did you buy that? Or why did you do that? Where are you? Like, I get given out to probably more than anybody in the company for stupid decisions. And that's because they're so invested. But now, if we can get back somewhere in 12 months, if I can have that vision to go, in 12 months' time, we could watch that video and say, it was all over then, and now look, maybe it's a positive in the long run because we wouldn't have done this. That's not to say one causes the other. It's to say that, like, you have to, in your mental state, have a positive, or else you'll just dwell in that negative forever. So you don't have a choice. You can't stay in the negative. You got to be positive. And even if you're lying to yourself to be positive, it's fine. You can just go, cool. This is going to be great. Because blessing in disguise, fresh start. You're like, you can start saying those things to yourself. And once you can try and get yourself through the first couple of weeks of that, you start believing it, and then you'll see some good things happen, and then eventually I think it'll just roll on from there.
If I was to put one stereotypical, I say, but it's not, personality characteristic with the Irish from somebody from England, the other side of the pond, pride is the first thing that comes to mind. It seems like everybody in Ireland has a tremendous feeling as they want to feel full of pride.
It's also a negative. Like, I would say it's a positive and a negative pride, because pride is good in the sense that you want to stand up for yourself, do your own thing, get through things. Nope, I'm not, I'm not going to show any weakness. I'm going to fire through. That's a real Irish thing to do. And then also has a negative because you hide a lot of emotions behind the pride that you might not feel those ways. But also, pride can lead to arguments, disagreements, people being quite arrogant, things like that as well. So there's a level of it's good and bad. And I do agree the Irish have a level of pride. Like we always say that Irish people are very begrudging, as in, if you make more money than someone in Ireland, they don't like you. But then when you fall down, they'll pick you up. You know what I mean? So it's a very strange thing we have. I think it comes from, not to put any politics in it, we come from like 600 years of oppression in Ireland, from you guys, but before you guys long ago. And they basically, I think anyone that had money...
Hey, I just came here to get my pot of golden leaf, mate. Like this.
But like a lot of that stuff is, I think that people's natural thing is like, anyone who is of power or importance or money is the enemy, because you've had that instilled in generation and generation. Then we're in a modern society where someone buys a Lamborghini, someone will go, oh, look at him with his Lamborghini, blah, blah, blah. And then, but if that guy lost his business in the morning, same guy would go down and go, do you need any help? Because you're back on my level again. So there's a bit of that in the Irish that I think is very good and bad. So when you're down, they pick you up. When you're up, they pull you down. So it's kind of like everyone stays in the middle, as I said.
Is this why you said no in your next video and told anybody that had set a GoFundMe page up to refund anybody that donated?
There's no way a bunch, like, it might mean a lot to us, bunch of cars in a warehouse and all that goes down, compared to what's on GoFundMe, like kids that are sick, like people who need heart transplants. Get a break. Like, that's the stuff that needs people's attention, needs people's charity, needs people who have spare money to give to them, because that's life and death. This isn't life and death. This is unfortunate. It's a setback. It's passion and projects and hobbies and cars, but it's not life and death. So GoFundMe's to me are life and death. So that's why I said, if you want to help us, buy merchandise, because I'm giving you a product for your money and I won't take it for free. So I'm like, you give me a 60 quid for a hoodie, I'll give you a hoodie. That keeps my cash flow going, keeps me running, but you get something out of it, because I don't think I've been around enough people that need GoFundMes in my life and need help and need things, outside of the personality that I am on camera to other things, that this isn't one of those cases. Like, I can still get up in the morning and because my cars are gone, it's not life or death. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a unfortunate series of events rather than something that I would say I need sympathy for as a person. I would need that, maybe sympathy as a business, maybe, but not as a person. I can still move on and do things and do my job. So I think I'd rather keep that to other things. And I felt that was a bit, what's the right word? Crass, maybe, or a bit like insensitive to take money for charity for a bunch of cars, which doesn't make sense to me.
And have you been amazed though by how loyal the audience has been to jump on all of that?
Yeah, as I said, it's like being at your own funeral. People come, like I walk, because Ireland's small, so everywhere I go now, people come up and shake my hand, and I'm like, I feel like if I died, I don't think people would be this sad. I think people are very invested in all these cars and this unit and the dream, and it's super nice. It's overwhelming because I think probably for a week, so what are we now, 2 weeks away, it's been every day, all day, because you go, everybody's in your family's ringing you, all your friends are ringing you, all your sponsors are ringing you, and you're kind of telling the same story over and over again.
Do you almost want to start making jokes about it?
Kind of getting to that point now where we're like, you know,
It's a hot topic.
it's a hot topic. We even said that Blaine used to give out about like how cold it was up there, and I was like, he'd probably still be up there in the fire going, I have 2 jackets on, giving out about it 625 degrees. So we were like, we're starting to like say, look, it is what it is, or we'll just say, oh, we'll just go get our cover, and it's gone, like that South Park thing of, and it's gone, everything's gone. But I was like, that's the thing, we're trying to make light of it a little bit in now, because it's just, you can't be so miserable all the time, and you can't dwell on it. But I was starting to turn a corner, but then you might go to a car show, and then obviously everybody just wants to talk to you about it, and they're so sorry, and it's so nice, but you just don't get that escape from it, you know what I mean? Like, so
yeah, because it's quite depressive in the end when it's lots
is,
of it,
and you're kind of almost blindly trying to forget about
pushes that away.
Yeah, and then again you'll come back to an insurance meeting, and then you'll go through it all again. And then one thing that I had to do that no modified car person should ever have to do is sit there and go through every euro I spent on every car up there. And it's very depressing, because not only that they're gone, but how much you spent, and you never had to count that before. And they're going, what the hell? How did I spend that much money on that car? And then you realize the market value versus what you spent, and you're like, oh no, like I've lost all that. But everybody, like the sponsors, like have been incredible. They're so supportive. All of our sponsorships are quite personal. Like we know the people that own those companies, run those companies, so they go. I'm just going to tell you how the sponsors we have. There's one guy who SP Tools, and they built us. We wanted to build these. This was a random thing. This is the same for all our sponsors. They were built us all. They gave us like a bunch of tools, right, and toolboxes and all this stuff. And then they built us these 3 custom toolboxes which house all of our merchandise. So normal toolboxes are like small little drawers, big drawers. They made us all these drawers specifically for our merchandise with these backdrops. They looked sick. Built 3 of them. That's it. Decimate 6 toolboxes to make these 3 things for us, right? And they stayed up all night. Brendan is his name from SP, with his kids building these for us. He got there to the show. He was so proud of them. We were so proud of them. 2 days later, they're now gone, right? So and I think 2 of them were nearly structural in the roof at one point, because the roof had collapsed on them. So we're like, oh man, we had such a cool setup, whatever. He messaged us yesterday a picture of him back building the 3 toolboxes again, like, you know, building this stuff again and again and again. The Lamborghini wheels, we had one of one, like wheels from Strom, which are our sponsor, and they burnt to a crisp 8 of them. 8 one of one forged wheels that like only the manufacturing was just for those wheels. He's on the phone like, what's the PCD of the Murcielago they're sending from Japan? We'll make the wheels again. We'll do it. It's like, they all want to get back in the game again. So I'm like, and we've lost so much of their money because it's all the product they gave us is gone. But now they're sending us more products. So I was like, it's incredible. Like, you couldn't ask for more help, more support. James Dean, the world champion of drifting, giving me his car to compete in the round 1 of our Drift Championship this weekend. I don't even have a race suit. I don't even have a helmet. I got to borrow this off all my friends, and I'm going to go drive probably one of the most famous drift cars in the world this weekend. And he's a friend of mine for that 10 years. But I said no 25 times to those messages. I'm not driving this car. I'm not driving your car, on top of all that. And he was like, no, you're driving the car. That's the end of it. He said the only time you're going to be able to escape from this is if you're drifting, because you can't think about anything else. You're just so engrossed in what you're doing. So amazing friends, family, people are coming to my house, filling my fridge. Like, it was crazy. That said, even though everyone's so amazing, you have, like, for me as a person, I'm always like, I have to have a plan. I have to have where am I going? What am I doing? Over the last, I would say, I figured out absolutely everything except for the short term, where we go. And that's almost the most important thing. It's like, I figured out the projects we can probably afford. Travel, where we're going, this long term, building this town, which is what I want to do. I kind of figured all that out, and then I was like, but where do I go today? And that's the last piece. So if I got that piece together, I feel it wouldn't be great that we're in that situation, but we wouldn't be in a bad situation. We'd be heading towards something again, which I think is what all the boys need. You're
missing a stepping stone to the bits you figured out.
Yes, exactly. And then all the lads just need to know, right, that's what we're doing, that's where we're going, off we go. You know, there's no, I mean, even if it's a bad plan, it's probably better than no plan, which I was generally, it's a lot of it's a bad plan for me, but they'll come through. If I give them a terrible plan, they will make it work. It'll still be, at some point you go, God, this was such a stupid idea, and now look at us here. And that was that town, that street we had up there. It was like, I'm going to get a building, but I can't afford the rent on a ground floor garage in Dublin, so I get the 2nd floor, but I get a ramp that puts the cars in the side of the building, and then I'll make that building look like it's a street. Like, none of that's a good idea.
Why do all entrepreneurs have to do stuff that involve problem solving? It'd be too simple just to do it anyway.
Oh, like a unit. I was like, well, I don't want a unit. No, but that came again from like just going, but like you could make it look like a town. And then if it rained, it wouldn't matter because we're inside and there's no rain. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is great. And then the worst thing is like Craig, one of the guys who works for me, he's a young guy. I think he's 19. And his dad is a builder and he's big into doing up cars as well. So I stupidly tell him this and he goes, we could do that. We could build that. No problem. I was like, you think so? He's like, yeah. And then we started talking and eventually here we are. We built the whole thing. So even I also felt sorry with the people that built it because there was a lot of time and energy way over what they were getting paid. Like people think, what's this worth? What's that worth? Like nobody makes money off doing something that unique and niche, you know, like it's just all passion. You know what I mean? Even it's like a kind of case where you go, you're having conversations about like double like pane glass and stuff. And you're like, it's inside. There's no need for it to be double. You know what I mean? It's on a real street. So people used to think it cost loads of money to build. I was like, there's nothing. It's a weird fake town that just is like a bunch of walls, bunch of glass, whatever. But we did it cool. I think it was very fun. I think it was it definitely when we saw kids and stuff come to it with their parents, like at the weekends and stuff, it was very cool because they would come up and they'd be all wide eyed, like this is amazing, like it's like a theme park, you know, for cars. So I love that, watching people's reactions when they would come in and see it for the first time. So to top that, to do something better than that, I don't know. We'll have to make something up, but I think we can. I think I'm older now than I was when I started the whole journey, so I need things to move faster now because I'm like, I can't wait another 4 or 5 years because you only get to a certain age before you have to start wearing half forwards, you know. That's the way it is.
Dave, that was absolutely fantastic. I wish you all the best in the next 12 months. Hope one day to be parking up inside your town. You should be so proud of yourself. And I rarely do say that actually at the end of a podcast to guests because I try and stay detached from the situation. But I feel a sense of pride just being able to be sat opposite, hearing how you've handled that situation. So I encourage the audience to please go and check out the merch line. If you would like to support these guys and what's happened, I certainly will be, and I'll be wearing it in the next episode. So, well, I'll be wearing it when it gets to me.
Oh,
in a future episode, because it might not be next day shipping.
Yeah, we're still waiting on the old hoodies and t-shirts to be made up, but we appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you so much for coming over, by the way, because you guys, if you don't know, you guys came over on the ferry to talk to us, which is wild. So I really appreciate the effort and time that you guys put in, and again, I hope the story was worth it, but we really appreciate it. You said thanks for coming. I was like, well, thank you guys for coming because you technically came to us. So awesome job. Love the podcast. I've listened to lots of episodes and keep doing what you're doing. So very proud of you guys as well for chasing down the stories in the automotive world as well.
Thank you.